Excellency Isabel de San Malo de Alvarado, the Vice President and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Panama. She is the first woman to hold both positions in her country. She was the alternate ambassador from Panama to the United Nations in New York and worked with the United Nations Development Program for 15 years. She received an award from the Harry S. Truman Institute for the Promotion of Peace for building dialogue and consensus throughout her career, and for the role played by the government of the Republic of Panama preparing the stage for the meeting between the presidents of Cuba and the United States. The Vice President is the first person in Latin America to receive this recognition. From her office, she promotes matters related to transparency, the fight against corruption, and gender equality. Her vision is to promote a foreign policy where Panama serves as a country of dialogue, consensus building, positioned at the forefront of the global development agenda. There are many other accomplishments in her resume. I tried to pick out the highlights. Now, Your Excellency, we look forward to your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jillian, and all of you for having me and having us, me and my delegation, and giving us this opportunity of a brief discussion. I understand mostly about Panama, but hopefully about foreign policy in the region and in the world. It's an honor to be here. And let me share with you that I started my career too many years ago, I'm not going to say how many years ago, at the Center for Democracy. It doesn't exist anymore, but it used to be a non-partisan, non-profit organization working on foreign policy in a similar ways as a foreign association. So the work that you do, I believe it's very important to policy making. It's very important to raising awareness of the importance of foreign policy to the citizens. Regular citizens see foreign policy and what happens at the global level far away, but it's not far away, and it's always closer to citizens and to countries, and every time citizens are more impacted by what happens in other countries. We have spent the past days at the United Nations talking about, Monday was a great discussion on refugees and migration. And you see how in other parts of the world, due to war or lack of opportunities, people flee and they become refugees or they become migrants. And at the end, they are passing through the Central American Isthmus to try to come to the United States. They are fleeing through the Mediterranean. So everywhere, citizens are really impacted by what happens elsewhere. And I really admire and commend you on the work that you do to raise awareness on global affairs and to research and discuss on topics of global relevance, because it really supports policymaking and discussion. So congratulations on that. I will try to be somewhat brief. I understand it's nicer to have more time for interaction than just to listen to me, but I want to take the opportunity to give you a brief overview about Panama. We like to think in Panama of Panama as a global place, and actually I like to say that Panama was globalized before globalization was in fashion. And if you look at our history, you have the Portobello Fairs, where you had people from all over the world coming to Panama, and then you had the gold rush, where Panama's isthmus was used to transit from the United States Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast, and then we had, with the United States, our canal built, so we connected the oceans through Panama. So our history is filled with our openness to the world and our connection to different regions and to different people, and that has really made us who we are. And we like to think that has allowed us to play a role, small role as a small country, but a role anyhow of bringing people together. And our connection to the world, in a sense, is part of our DNA, because it's part of our history from before we were a republic. Now we are within Latin America. Latin America enjoys relative peace. We are about to be present next Monday in Colombia at the signature of the peace agreements in Colombia, the last conflict in Latin America. And this is a region that has been filled with conflicts for many, many years. Fortunately, Panama has been a peaceful country. We have not had that sort of conflicts within our country, but we have been influenced by those because Central America was a region of conflict for many years, and the last remaining conflict in the region is Colombia. And it's a great news, not only for Colombia, but for the continent and for the region, that we are going to see a conflict of more than 50 years have the peace agreement signed, and then we all know that the peace agreement is a major achievement, but it's only the beginning of a very long, hard process of executing the agreements and demobilizing forces and bringing these people into society. And as I heard once, President Santos mention what's been discussed for the agreements, the development in Colombia. What's going to make it possible to last, to bring development to the people, health, education. So at the end, and last year at the United Nations, we approved the Sustainable Development Goals. At the end, this is the response. So in Panama, we have enjoyed stability. We did have a situation with a military dictatorship. We've had democracy for 26 years now, and we take pride in having elected 5 different governments after restoring democracy with strong, free electoral processes, and that's something that is very valuable to all Panamanians and that we take pride in, as we take pride in freedom of expression, as we take pride in a market-based economy. In terms of the economy, Latin America is enjoying or passing through difficult times. We see the major economies in the region with very slow growth. Fortunately for us, Panama is different from that. We have had steady and important growth numbers for over the past decades, double-digit numbers for some years, and we are projected to have almost 6% growth according to the IMF, and that is a few times higher than the global projections. So why do we manage? How do we manage to continue to have growth amidst the economic situation? We like to think that is a result of different things. First of all, the competitiveness in Panama to do business in Panama, to invest in Panama. We are ranked by the World Economic Forum second in competitiveness in the region. The diversity of our economy. We have a very diverse economy. We have the canal, we have a large logistics sector, financial sector, commerce, and we take pride in having inaugurated a couple of months ago the enlarged Panama Canal. It's something that emphasizes what I have mentioned of Panama as a country that's open to the world, that services the world, and we also take pride in the fact that over 100 years ago, the Panama Canal was built by the United States, but the expansion of the canal was built by Panamanians with Panamanian resources. And it was a project of $5.5 billion. If you take this amount into dollars of the beginning of last century, when we built the original canal, we just built a second canal. That's what it means in terms of investment. And this expanded canal will allow vessels, and has been allowing already for the past months, vessels with a 3-time capacity. And more than that, this is opening a whole new route in terms of maritime transits, because it permits vessels with liquefied natural gas. So this is opening a route, and we've already had LNG vessels pass through the expanded canal. This is opening a new maritime route to transit LNG from the Gulf of Mexico to the northeast of Asia. The canal will be able to accommodate up to 88% of the global LNG fleet, up from 8% currently. What challenges do we still have as a country? We still have challenges in terms of development. We still have, even though we're growing as an economy and we have dramatically increased the numbers in terms of poverty and inequality in Panama, we still have challenges in that regard, and that is the core of our current government's plan. Our government is centered on the people. We have a very important 5-year investment plan completely aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. We are doing investments on the people: water, sanitation, education, and we are sure that the investments we're making will really take Panama to the next level in terms of development and well-being for our people. Our objectives is to deepen social welfare, increase stability, expand human capital, and further develop our infrastructure in order to better serve human capital. We are very aware of the cost to development due to corruption. Our government is a government 100% committed to transparency. We do not permit nor allow corruption. We've taken office in a government where before there was a system in place that permitted just using politics to serve particular interests. We believe politics is a vehicle to serve your country, to serve the people, and this is very high on President Varela's agenda. And we believe that is going to be an important pillar of the development during this 5-year period, because our resources are really being, people don't know what the cost to them is of corruption. But the money that corruption takes away from development, it's huge. So we are sure that the investments we're making are also going to have an impact on the people in our country, because we're really making sure that resources are geared towards where they need to be geared to, and there is no tolerance for corruption. In terms of foreign policy, we like to see our policy based on 2 main pillars. One pillar is Panama as a country that promotes dialogue and promotes understanding. This is very linked to our history and the role that we have played. We like to think that we gave or provided a small scenario with the Summit of the Americas, where for the first time the United States and Cuba shook hands for the first time in over 50 years. And we believe that Panama's ability to promote understanding and Panama's ability to relate to different systems and respect different systems gave or provided an ideal framework for that to happen. It's not Panama's responsibility, it's the responsibility of Cuba and the United States that made it possible. But we like to think that the way we promote dialogue and understanding in terms of foreign policy gave a scenario for that possibility. Our second pillar in terms of foreign policy is our participation in the global development agenda. We understand the Sustainable Development Goals, the efforts of the world towards human rights, towards just taking people to the center of policymaking everywhere, globally and locally, is something where the discussions on foreign policy need to continue to happen, because it does provide an impact on people's lives and on opportunities and possibilities. In that regard, we have been working hard on our positions in terms of human rights that has allowed Panama to have more participation in terms of human rights discussion. We have been selected for the first time at the UN Commission on Human Rights. Panama currently holds the council. Panama currently holds the vice presidency. We also nominated for the first time ever a Panamanian to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and she was elected. We believe this will support Panama's contribution and Panama's opportunities locally as well to promote these issues. We have been very active as well in terms of climate change. We were happy this morning to deposit the instruments for the climate change agreement. We were the 28th country in the world to ratify at the local level the Paris Agreement. And I don't know how long I've been, but I hope not to take too long. In terms of one last thing that I don't want to miss the opportunity of sharing with you is our efforts in terms of fiscal transparency. At the beginning of this year, we were on everybody's top of mind for the wrong reasons. And I understand that Panama is just a very nice name. So some journalists decided to name something, and I'm not going to name it. I'm not going to name it with our name. However, Panama is completely committed to transparency in this regards, and we understand that there is an issue at the global level with tax havens and with resources being derived and avoiding taxes, and that shouldn't be tolerated, and we do not tolerate it, and we have taken important steps within our government. And let me just share with you that these publications referred to offshores, yes, promoted by a law firm, a Panamanian law firm, but 80% of those offshores were not registered in Panama. And none of the banks that hold the monies referred to in that publication are in Panamanian banks, nor in Panama in foreign banks. So once again, we understand that we have a very nice name, and it made it interesting to name this publication with our country. But we regret that gives a perception that really does not define what we are as a country, what we're committed to, and what we do. And actions speak by themselves. When we assumed government, Panama was in FATF's gray list, lacking a framework strong enough for combat money laundering. We were able to pass legislation and regulations and reorganize institutions in such a fast manner that we were removed in record time from FATF's gray list before the publications. So that is just a recognition to where we stand. We have continued on our roadmap, a roadmap designed by the government as soon as we came in this regard, and we have committed to signing the Multilateral Convention for Exchange of Information at the OECD, and we will continue on our path to support the global efforts on this global challenge where Panama plays a part and many other countries play their part. Strengthening financial transparency is important. We have a very strong financial center that abides by the strictest regulations globally, and we are sure that in the short term we will be able to send this message and to be recognized for what we really are. Just to finalize, Latin America is the backyard of the United States. What happens in our region is relevant. And as I referred to at the beginning of my message, the world is just always more and more connected. And if we are hoping to have peace and stable countries, we need to ensure that the peace, stability happens farther than our frontier. Because when it doesn't happen farther than our frontier, it will just get back to us the way it has been getting back to us with terrorism and migrants and refugees. Panama is a very small country, a stable country, a strong democracy, a country where, as I mentioned, we believe in free market economy, and we believe in freedom of expression, and we believe in participating and supporting global efforts. In this regard, we see ourselves as a great connection. This is the message that the Panama Canal used to present to the world, the expanded canal. Panama emerged 3 million years ago to connect two land masses and create the American continent. Then we were fortunate to build a canal to connect two oceans in our country, and we hope to continue in our small way to connect the world, to connect the region, and to promote through that connection the values that we share and the values that we believe in, the values of transparency, of freedom of expression, of democracy, and of market economy. I end there, and I hope I haven't spoken too much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
much.